We are live on all platforms. Hi, Gad. How are you?
Hey, I'm very fine, and you? But
Doing well, doing well. Happy to re start or re. How can I say this? Yeah,
yeah,
there's a term for this. Mm,
reload, reload the
reload.
dojo. Yeah. How much time did we make? Like
I don't
maybe
know.
two
The last episode
months, three
was a couple of
months.
months ago,
Yeah,
something like that. But yeah, reboot. Reboot was the
yeah,
word I was looking
reboot.
for.
Yeah, nice.
um, yeah, let me just do this. Okay, perfect. Because I have some some comments from Twitter from
Cool.
someone from a friend of the show that I'll share later on. But yeah, happy to be here today. Happy to be again to have you representing the second lab
Hmm.
and representing someone, well, an organization that has been helping uh, master students, PhDs, and postdocs in career readiness, which is it's a mission that's very close to my heart.
Hmm.
And Yeah, super happy to have you here again to talk about this sometimes difficult question of should I, now that I have my PhD, go for a postdoc?
Yeah, yeah. Difficult question. So just to give a disclaimer, I did a PhD and I did two postdocs.
Hmm.
So one in Ontario and another one in Montreal. So I was at Queen's University in Kingston for 2 years, and then I did an industrial postdoc for 2 years at McGill University. So yeah, I have a little bit of experience of
Hmm.
postdocs. I have tons of
Which I don't.
stories.
Which I don't. I stopped at the
So
PhD.
so so from somebody who didn't do a postdoc,
Hmm.
what's your point of view about it? Like,
Well, the questions that I have, and that I think people who are maybe finishing their PhD want to know is what does the what's the objective? What purpose does a postdoc serve? Is it an objective in itself? Is it a stepping stone for something else? Is it the natural follow up of a PhD? Is it an obligation if you want to become a researcher, be it in industry or not? I have all the questions.
okay. So let's uh let's going step by step. So first of all, I would like to give you some results. So
Mhm.
we were in the same conference, David and I,
Yes.
and we had some results about this question. So the first question is, if I'm doing a PhD, what how much people finish as a professor? Okay,
Hmm.
so the answer is pretty vague, but let's say it's 15%.
Yeah.
Any kind of fields. So in engineering, it's I don't remember, but for all the fields, it's around 15%.
Hmm.
And actually, there's more and more PhDs. Uh, it's increasing. I don't remember the number. I think in Canada it's plus 3% per year,
Okay.
and the number of assistant professor decrease. And I think the number it's 2% per year decrease.
Hmm.
So finally, the number of 15% in 2 years will not be true. It will decrease.
It'll decrease. Yeah. And the numbers I
Hmm.
have for the numbers of PhDs in Canada graduating per year, I think these last few years it's around 8,000. But
Hmm.
like you said, that number is increasing.
Yeah, it's increasing. It's increasing because I mean, the governments give more money for PhDs, but more in terms of not increase the salary or increase the stipends of the PhD, but increase the number of stipends. There's more and more money for that. It's because I think, I'm not sure about it. We should ask to the governments,
Hmm.
but I think it's because OCDE, the numbers, one of the indicator for growth of innovation, growth of research, and wealthness is the number of PhDs. And the more PhD you have, the better it is for a country.
Okay, it's an indicator. So it's the OECD. It's an indicator
OECD.
of the
Yeah,
success of the financial.
I think it's kind of indicator. So PhDs are the people who innovate. It's pretty obvious, I think. So this is an indicator. So the more PhD you have, the better it is.
Yeah. And
If
so governments are
yeah.
saying, okay, we are going to give more, create more PhD,
more stipends for PhDs.
PhDs.
So that makes sense if you give these PhDs a career path that is beneficial for society. So you will answer to your question if you do that. Those professors' positions are beneficial for the society, of course. But all these PhDs will not be professors. So what are the things they can do? Postdocs. It's part of the answers. But yeah, another number that I would like to talk to you is in Canada, and specifically in Canada, the system is made that you can be a postdoc for 5 years.
Oh wow.
And so after your PhD, you can be a postdoc for 5 years. And after 5 years of your PhD, you're not eligible to be a postdoc. So you can be an employee of the university if you want to continue at the university or leave. But
so what? So you can become
yeah,
a research assistant or
exactly
all sorts of things around.
If your professor or your department or somebody at the university have the money for paying you, they will. So it means that in terms of stats, and it means that I think, and we saw the same results, so maybe you can confirm, 50% of the PhDs in Canada have a temporary job after 5 years of their graduation. And I think 2/3 of them are postdocs.
Okay.
So it means that, and then it decreased drastically, and it's because of this reason that you're not eligible to be a postdoc after 5 years.
5 years.
So
yeah.
a little bit of stats context.
Yeah.
I think it's not a question of opening position of postdocs. I think it's a question of the people. Most of the people follow the university career path, which is after a PhD I will do a postdocs, and after 5 years of postdoc I'm not eligible, so I will move from the university.
Yeah.
Can we do that earlier? So that's the question.
Yeah, I remember in the that conference that you mentioned that we were both at, that they had this statistic and they were still working on the numbers, but that the further you went after the PhD, and tell me if you remember these numbers, the earliest you would leave the academic path for another job, the more satisfied you were at your career. There was something around that.
Yes,
And
something
5 years is long to be in this kind of, I wouldn't say
it's long. It's a second PhD.
Yeah,
honestly.
Would you say that the postdoc is a precarious professional situation? And do you have numbers on how much does a postdoc do compared to a PhD?
So what is a postdoc in Canada? What is a postdoc in Canada? So, and especially in Quebec, we're living in Quebec, you and me, so we can talk about the Quebec situation. So in Canada, a postdoc is an employee of the university or an employee of we can be paid by a grant or by the professor itself or by the university. So it's an employee. It means that you are paid with a salary, not a stipend anymore.
Okay.
and the difference is the stipend, you don't pay taxes, and the salary, you pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I checked right before the conversation, what is the average salary of postdocs? It's between $50,000 and $55,000 per year. You remove the taxes and you pay
Canadian.
Canadian, yeah, Canadian dollars. If you
So
remove the taxes, and it's specifically in Canada, I don't know the US situation, but should be similar. But I think in postdocs in the US, you you pay a tuition at the university. I'm not sure about it.
mm-hmm.
And in France, because I know that you have a lot of listeners in France. In France, it's another situation as well. So in Canada, yeah, it's between 50 and 55. Um,
Minus
and
taxes,
what
how much do they keep?
Yeah, it's 35,000.
35.
So it's with the inflation that we're living
Yeah.
this today,
And the cost of housing, etc.,
yeah,
etc.
it's a very low salary. Um, it's a very low salary for somebody who have this level of education
Yeah,
and skills. So
of course.
so I know more or less what we call them sometimes interns, because they are
Mm-hmm.
very low paid. It's another discussion, but this is the pay. Then what do you have else in the contract? So it's 35 hours, 40 hours per week. We know that people stay longer in the lab.
Yes.
It's long hours.
Yeah, that's
And they
efficient.
can work way more, especially if they would like to be a professor at some point. They it's a very it's a very demanding job. You have a lot of pressure.
Mm.
Like all the professor will tell you, my I'm I'm evaluated on my publication, so you have to publish a lot. So we expect you publish a lot. Other thing is, from my experience of postdocs, my experience of postdocs was, so my last postdocs was around 4 years ago. So I don't
Mm.
know what's going on now, but what I know, I don't think it moved a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
there were no retirement plan. So
Yeah,
most of the company give you a retirement plan,
of course.
thing like they will give you some money in an account for your retirement. So there's no retirement plan. I found that the insurance is very costly,
Okay.
and you work a lot. And which was very, very frustrated, especially for me, is in Quebec, not in Ontario. In Quebec specifically, you have no service access anymore. So what I mean is, if you want to go to the career center of your university, you can't.
Okay, because now you're an employee, so you don't have all the student services, let's
Yeah,
say.
maybe I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but this is what I live. So if you want to go to the doctor at the university, you can't.
It's out of pocket. Okay.
It's out of pocket because you're not a student anymore. You're an
Mm-hmm.
employee.
You're an employee, but you're a trainee, so your salary is not that high. It's
Yeah,
really,
it's really between
yeah. It's
two worlds.
so where I'm going with my question, and we have here Jason De La Toya that says that I'm asking all the right and practical questions right now. Thank you, Jason, for watching, and I'm trying to be a little bit tough and testing, because I feel that it's easy for people, especially imagine people coming from abroad, to say, okay, you know what, it's the next logical step, I'm going to follow up with it. Actually, it's a little bit like the sunk investment fallacy. I've put all these years into the PhD, and this is the next logical step. um I
It's
think
it's
that's
it's
what I should do.
when
uh
yeah, exactly, when you understand this kind of, oh, of course I have to pay for my retirement. That will happen. You finish your PhD, you're 30, 35. You're right.
mhm.
Maybe 20, let's say 27 to 35. So if you do 5 years of postdocs, between 35 and, I mean, and 40 around.
Mhm. Yeah.
and you start your retirement plan. And if you and if I'm seeing my father, for example, my mother, well, they just got retired and they are very tired. So 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 think about it. I think about like people at 30 years old would like to start their lives. So they would like to have kids. They would like to have their home. I mean,
Yeah,
I think most of the people at 30 would like to start their life,
yeah.
and it's yeah, it's very difficult.
You can not on 35,000 a year unless your
Yeah.
partner is doing way much better. But so here, what I'd love to for people watching or listening to take home is there kind of a rule of thumb of deciding, let's say your PhD went really well, you published really well, and I know people who were kind of stellar, where in the lab where I was actually, is the one that I'm thinking about has been on the show. um and now, of course, his first name is escaping me. It's okay, it's fine, but stellar student, PhD student, then went and also stellar publications in the States, and then one postdoc, two postdocs, three postdocs, and he was never able to get his there's a special type of funding you get in the States that kind of is your first PI funding, and
Hmm.
then he didn't get that for, I think, 3 years after having, like I said, a stellar publication and scientific work, um,
it's
trajectory.
it's
And then he ended up going to industry, and then he felt the huge difference of cultures and of also like financial comfort, etc., and being able to start, like you said, living a full adult life with all its facets of, like you said, housing, family, putting
mhm.
money on the side for retirement, etc., which he wasn't doing while he was a postdoc.
Yeah, exactly. So there's also, I think there's a misconception too, where if you leave the university, you will not learn anymore something.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, from my experience, I'm an employee for 4 years now. Uh, in the last 4 years, I learned way more than in staying 4 years in postdocs. Way more. Um, and I didn't learn. Of course, I didn't learn something about scientific things, like, but yeah, I learned a lot for the last 4 years, and way more during my postdocs
Yeah,
work.
and from knowing you and from talking with you, you
Hmm.
do first you work very in a very close connection with science and research,
Yeah,
and it's very stimulating work that you do. It has to do with
yeah,
innovation, and
exactly.
so yeah. But there is this idea that, oh, I'm if I leave university walls, I won't be intellectually stimulated anymore, and it's a fallacy too, of course.
Hmm.
Mm, because there's place for you and there's need for you outside university walls in so
Yeah,
many places.
and finally, when I was postdoc, I just got more experience in research, and I didn't learn fundamentally something. Of course, I learned some technical aspects
Hmm.
that I'm not using anymore. I'm using it sometimes because I'm talking with researchers all the time, so I can talk with them about technical aspects,
Hmm.
but they are better than me in these fields, like in these skills. But yeah, I learned so much about many other things, and especially other skills that are technical. So
Hmm.
yeah, all the transferable skills. Yeah,
That's true.
that's.
Yeah. So actually, I'm gonna at the end. I'm just thinking of a book that I've just read. It's a classic, and I'll
Mhm,
make a mental note of sharing it with the audience at by the end of our conversation.
mhm,
That talks about the whole adventure of becoming a professor, or
mhm,
not. But there's some very important information in there. Um, but so for the people who are watching and are still looking for this question of how do I decide?
Okay.
How do you have so what are signals that you would say now looking back on in your experience?
Mhm.
What are signals that you could have listened to outside yourself or within yourself by the end of your PhD that might have informed you to say, you know what, I've done it this far, and actually, if I start now my career path wherever outside,
Mhm.
I'm gonna gain time. Uh, what are signals in your opinion that will inform someone to yes go for a postdoc
Mhm.
versus signals that might be saying, you know what, maybe you're going to be losing time in your like big life's big picture.
So the first is have a plan in mind. If you want to go in a postdoc, have a plan. There's we can list some reasons for doing a postdoc. So the first reason is we talked about it, for being a professor. But you sorry for what I will say, but you don't wake up at the end of your PhD and say, "Well, you know what? Tomorrow I would like to be a professor."
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you built very wisely, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, and have something in mind. Tell you maybe at some point I will not be a professor, and that's fine.
Yeah. So
So, but build it from the beginning of your PhD. It's like all the career path that we discuss sometimes.
yeah.
Build it from the beginning of your PhD. Uh, Networking with other professors, other
Mm-hmm.
universities. It's the same that doing informational interview with people outside of academia. You do informational interview with professors as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not stick only for that to this path, because I mean, um, there's a trend for a couple of decades. I mean, in industry where we change jobs every 2 years.
Yeah.
But when if you are a professor, you will stay. Most of the professors stay at the same university for all their
Yeah.
career.
Yeah. If they get
But
tenure track. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think for being a professor, um, why there's no professor position after a PhD directly? I know one or two people who got it. I know some people got a professor position in very small university in region, uh, who uh, who got a professor position after the PhD. But honestly, I think you need 1 year or 2 years of postdocs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's typical.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite competitive now, right? Like you said, there's 15% of us who go through PhD that have
Yeah,
spots.
we have to
It's
keep
more
this in mind.
because I
Yeah.
remember the professors from my PhD program in Portugal. They said in my time, a PhD from a good university was enough to
Yeah.
get a position, and now
Yeah.
it's not enough anymore. Yeah.
It's not enough anymore, and your projects, your topics should be very, very, very trendy.
Mm-hmm.
You should use very wisely where you will do your postdocs. And honestly, if you do a postdoc with a big name in a very big, very trendy project, I mean, they will give you a good, you know,
Good
a
boost.
good assurance that maybe at some point you will get a professor position.
Mm-hmm.
How much professor, um, at the university who did a postdoc at Harvard University, Stanford universities.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it. Like
Yeah.
it's there are trends.
Of course, the Ivy
Yeah,
Leagues. And yeah.
yeah. That's the game. That's the academic game. The other thing is, so, so have a plan in mind. And the plan should not start. Making the plan should not start at the end of your PhD. It should start really before.
Mm-hmm.
Immigration reasons. So most of the people who's doing a PhD and then a postdoc are a lot of them are immigrants, so they coming in a new country for doing their PhD. We both immigrant,
Yep.
David and I. So yes, you do a PhD, but in Canada you have to work for 1 year to start your PR. So why not
PR
doing
is
a
permanent
postdoc?
residency.
Yeah,
Mhm.
permanent residency. So do 1 year of postdocs. Why
Mhm,
not?
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
It's immigration reasons, or you go in another country and you do a postdoc,
Mhm.
and it could happen.
Yeah, actually, moving countries can also be a reason to, depending on if you already, let's say, have a family, maybe it's a reason to not
Yeah,
go into a postdoc too. It
and
could go both
and
ways.
and universities in Canada and also in the US has facilitates the immigration because they have, I think,
For qualified
yeah, for
qualified candidates.
qualifying, yeah, in to move in Canada. And I think that's the reason why you are in Canada, David, for that kind of permit.
Mhm.
So it facilitates the process of immigration. Honestly, you can
Yeah.
go there by this way.
It's true. Now, I have someone here on Twitter who is a friend of
Hmm.
the show, Dr. Mark Reed.
Oh,
You
Mark.
might, yeah, you might know him,
I
who
I
says
I don't know him, but I saw his interviews. So
yeah, about his interview was about and he has this book about the imposter syndrome, and his
Mhm.
first kind of response to this question of how do I decide is consider asking what do I want my postdoc to enable. For academia or certain industry roles, there are plenty reasons for doing a postdoc. For entrepreneurs, there might be plenty reasons against doing a postdoc. And then he
yeah,
also talks about imposter syndrome because he says if doing the postdoc is the right move, it's also worth being aware that the move from one space to another, like from the PhD to a postdoc, is often the most potent trigger of the so called imposter syndrome. It's natural, normal, and not something that should deter you from the post. Thank you, Mark, for sending
yeah,
that in. I think it goes nicely with what Gad was saying. Plus, it talks about this question of changing spaces, and it is a very different existence. And you know this better than I
hmm
because you lived it. I've read about it. The book that I was going to mention is A PhD is Not Enough. I should I should actually, you know what? I should be a good
yeah,
host and give you the name of okay, from by Peter J. Feibelman, and
hmm
it's already it's been edited a bunch of times. And actually, what I liked in this book was that the author suggested also that it all needs to be part, and like it's a bit saying what you said in another way. It has to be part of a strategy. If you're going for a
hmm
postdoc, it should be part of a strategy, and like you said, like Mark says, it should be for something. There should be an objective.
yeah,
Also, from what I got from the book, a sign that you might go for that 15% sliver in the door of maybe becoming a professor later on is how did the PhD go? Did you kind of start networking in academia? Are you now, has your work been recognized by peers? And do you feel that, okay, this is my tribe? This is also another thing to consider, because if you just if you're thinking, well, I like being in the lab, I like doing the experiments, etc., I don't think that's reason enough to go for a postdoc.
and yeah, if you want to be a professor, it's always the same question, like what kind of skills should I have? And it's not only technical skills, because as a professor, you're a
No,
manager, you somebody who's dealing with money, etc.
a
So
networker also.
networker, if you want that your university employ you, they would like to be proud of you. So
Yes.
yeah. um two other kind of postdocs that we can talk about is industrial postdocs.
Yes, please.
um
That's also a very mysterious to a lot of people, so I'd
yeah,
be really
there's
happy for you to
I would
talk
say there's
about.
do and don't. If you don't want, okay, industrial postdoc, what it is, you do your research with a collaboration with a company. So it's simply something like that. There's different kind of setups. So it could be a research contract that the company pay your professor for doing some stuffs. It could be in Canada, we have the well-known MyTax grants where um, you should. I think you should. I think this is in the. I'm not sure, but maybe my tax people can answer it. But I think you should spend 50% of your time at the university, and 50% of your
Okay.
time at the company. So actually, you have interaction with companies, and most of these postdocs are R&D postdocs.
Okay.
You do research in a research. I mean, in a research project between the professors and the universities
And
and the companies. Yeah.
so actually, let's stay a little bit more on this aspect of industrial postdocs. What does a company want from that, versus just hiring people who come from a PhD? What is
Hmm.
a company gaining from an industry postdoc? And
Yeah.
then what is there at the end of that, let's say, year of industry postdoc for the candidate?
Yeah. So basically, the reasons why the company is contacting there's multiple reasons in terms of services. So maybe the company doesn't have a very expensive lab
Okay.
in their own, and also the skills, technical skills to answer to their questions, and they will contact the university labs, and there's grants
Okay.
for this kind of collaborations. There are grants. NSERC, MyTax give these grants, this kind of grants. Also, the federal government have this kind of thing. There's also the IP thing. So a university can have an IP that the company is interested in and would like to transfer this technology to the company, and there's a development process into it,
Okay.
uh, developing the research to a product, and there are specific grants for that, I2I grants at the NSERC. We have at Axelis some grants, and this is our business for that.
Okay.
So they are interesting about having the IP of the university be licensed, and this is what they're doing. Other kind of reasons is relationship with the professors. So I would like to keep a relationship with the professors. So I found the professors for doing a research, and the research is interesting. So I'm very interested to have these kind of results and know what I would like to do with these results. So
Without having to
from
build a full size lab in my
yeah,
company.
in the company, you know, I can think about it. So when I was working at McGill, the company that we worked with, it was upon a research contract where they wanted to know something about their product that they were not able to know. So they found us. We had at McGill huge, very expensive equipment that I think the company, it's not worth to have it in their company, and
Of
it's
course.
millions dollars equipment. So and we were able to use it and understand the results. So
Hmm.
this is the reasons why we had this kind of things, so this kind of contract. So,
Hmm.
but typically, as a person who's doing this kind of postdocs, I think I think there's a part of negotiation there,
Mm.
because you honestly, at the end of your postdoc, you would like to be transferred directly to the company, honestly. So
Of course.
be very transparent with that. So I would like, and you can negotiate. It's like every job. It's a job with salary and and job contract. So you can
Hmm.
negotiate. So you can negotiate saying like, okay, what are my chance to be in the company at the end of the contract? Uh, you I think during your interview, you should talk with the company. You should talk with your advisors. you should see what's the relationship between both, because what would be the plan of working. So what's your chance to be in the company at the end of your contract? And hopefully the end of the contract is not 7 years after.
No.
So,
Now, a question actually. So you're talking about MyTax, about Axelis, etc. Do these bursaries, or anyway, does this money add on to the postdoc stipend that we talked about? So are people in industry postdocs better paid than in non-industry postdocs?
I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure about what I would say, but I think my tax has a cap for
Okay.
the stipends. I mean, not the stipends, the salaries. What we have to see is it's not the thing. It's not the money that you will have in your pocket. I think so.
Okay.
Except I think if you have a Benting grant,
Okay.
this is the case.
Specific grant.
Benting grant is very, very prestigious grants. But yes, it doesn't count it's a salary. So yeah,
Okay.
it
So it's kind of this.
and from for our specific. I mean, I can be very technical and take my hat of project managers. So from our side, it's not. It could be negotiated. There's no caps for salaries in our grants.
Okay. So that's an interesting point. Plus, what I think is the great value for the candidate, for
Yeah.
the young researcher, is the fact that they will be at least 50% of the time, like you said, in that space, able to network in that space, learn that culture, and for sure that will open up their possibilities professionally after that industrial postdoc versus a purely academic one.
Yeah, and maybe I can promote something. We just got
Of course.
a new program between the FRQ and Axelis. The name is Inventech.
Okay.
It's a program for inventors, PhDs who would like to continue as a postdoc after the PhD for 1 year. So it's not a lot of grants this year, but we hope that it will increase in the next years. Very interesting grants, and it pushes you to innovate. So if you're an innovator who have an invention disclosure at the universities, and it's a good moment to have this grant, I think you should go for it. If it's specific for Quebec people.
Okay. Is it pour des innovations d'avenir? No, it's really called Inventech. I'm looking for it.
Yeah, it's for des innovations d'avenir. I will
Okay.
I will send you the link.
The link, and I'll put it in the show notes.
It's a very specific grant. The square is very small. Like, to go into this, the eligibility is very it's for people who are working with us. But with Axelis. The last things of the reasons to do postdoc is starting a company.
Yeah.
So if you think at the end of your PhD, or even during your PhD, you've started a company project. This is not this one, actually.
No?
But no, this
Because
is not this one.
that's the link that I found. It's fine. Send me the link later on.
Yeah, I will send you the link later on. So
But
if you would
you're
like to
saying
start
for
a company,
entrepreneurship. Okay.
yeah, entrepreneurship.
Based on your research from your PhD.
It could be based on the research of your PhD, but it could be like, if you want to start, an Apple factory, that's fine too. So you can design your kind of postdocs, and you have to be very transparent with your professors. Okay, I did this research. I would like to start a company from that. It could be a postdoc in the same lab that you did your PhD. Who cares? Because you start a company, you would like to be an entrepreneur. I know that it's not very great if you would like to be a professor, but if you would like to be an entrepreneur, who cares?
Yeah, you just want to
But
push the project forward. Yeah.
it's push the project forward. Pushing the project forward for the research, I don't think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing the project forward for being an entrepreneur and starting a business from that, it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so why it's not a good idea to push the research forward? It's just because we all know that we work 5 years on a project, and this is our own,
Mm-hmm.
and be very cautious with that. Like, don't push too much this thing. Your professor can propose you to do that, but don't. I would not do that. But um, and but you can push forward for innovation, having a plan in mind, having starting a company from that. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There are some grants for that.
Okay. And this
Uh,
and this would involve like, because it's innovation and entrepreneurship, it would probably also involve IP and any, what are those offices called in universities? Um,
yes. So the industries industry liaison office, industry
mhm.
university liaison office.
Liaison office. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this kind of thing. So we work with the yeah, sorry, my kid is there.
It's okay.
So
Go ahead. This is a
um
live recording. You can talk with the kid, answer, and then I'll edit it
yeah,
after. It's fine.
okay, you're good. um so yes, starting a company, there's in Quebec, and I know that in France too, and I, in some universities there's entrepreneurship postdocs
Okay.
grants. V1 has a studio at Concordia has one, has some grants like that. I mean, there's very specific grants, but they are very few.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But honestly, if you would like to start a company and being a postdoc at the same time, it's feasible. You have to be very transparent with your professor,
Mm.
and your professor can help you with that.
Yeah.
So starting a business, industrial postdoc, being a professor, immigration. But honestly, overall, it's a huge risk to do postdocs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I understand, and so it feels to me like that first year that there's all these reasons that we just mentioned, but maybe you should, once you start a postdoc, you should start kind of a clock going to say, okay, by the middle of the postdoc I need to know if yes or no I want to go for a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Because then again, because of maybe that sunk investment fallacy, you think, well, now I've put 1 year, and I have 5 years limit. I'll try my best to maybe become a professor or something, and then
Mm-hmm.
you might end up at the end of those 5 years feeling like you've kind of wasted all that time. Is there any other indicator? So you said you did two postdocs.
Yeah.
What was the decision process between the first and the second for you?
The first and the second for me was first immigration, because I was in Ontario and I was moving. I did a bad choice also, but I I was moving to Quebec to continue my immigration process and not having a postdoc. Uh, the second reasons was it was industrial postdocs. I
Okay.
wanted to work in industry, but I think I didn't negotiate enough
Mhm.
to for that, because I was offered after 2 years another year of postdocs,
Mm.
and being a professional, a research professional after this, and maybe at some point going into this company that I was working with. I was not sure to continue in this ways.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
so finally I got an offer and decided to accept the offer, and
Okay.
going to technology transfer. So because I networked, I did
Okay, that was going to be
all
my
the
question.
good
You
job.
got an offer because you started or you kept on networking.
Yeah, I was aware about what's going on outside of industry. I did all that, um, increasing the skills, the increasing the number of skills, the knowledge of the skills, and also network. So network a
Hmm.
lot with different kind of people, and at some point you have an offer, and
Yeah.
somebody and somebody tells you, okay, I come into my company.
Well, at least one thing we can say is if you don't network, you're not going to get an offer coming to your mailbox or your
Hon-
inbox.
Honestly, networking is the best thing that can happen, because you can, in even for technology, just in a
Hmm.
technology standpoint, if you want to know something, don't spend hours, days to read papers. Just talk to someone.
Hmm.
Um, so I would not go in this thing that would be for another discussion. But networking is so great.
It's key. Yeah, yeah. No, it is, and it's true that if you talk with people, they'll cut through the fluff. They'll give you just the important data,
Hmm.
and yeah, you don't have to go the brute force approach of now I'm going to put 10 papers on my, I'm going to open 10 tabs and spend a few days here getting knowledge on this.
Hmm.
Um, God, we're getting to the end of this dojo. I think I put some tough questions. This is it's not an easy question because often
Hmm.
people make do these choices because they have a vision, they have a dream. But my idea is to try to put the caveats out there, and I think we did
Hmm.
of why embarking on a postdoc or embarking on multiple postdocs, what risks it entails, um, and maybe we could end uh, with um, and I'll just ask you this question. It's a little bit out there, but it might be a good way to end. What are good outcomes that happen when that may happen or that you have seen happen, maybe in your cohorts at the second lab, or maybe with other people, of people who said,
Yeah.
what, I am stopping at the PhD and now I'm doing something else than research. Because I think also people need to be able to model that. We're saying, be careful, the postdoc is a big time investment, low return. um, what are advantages of saying, what, okay, the postdoc is a path that exists, but there are other paths out there and people are having fulfilling careers in these paths? Do you have anything to share on that side?
Yeah, a lot. So I, I can start with what Mark Reed said about imposter syndrome. A lot of PhDs have it. Um,
Yeah.
if you are well supported, and I think what we offer at the second lab about mentorship is, it's a good reasons. It's a good thing because you are mentored not by your professor but with somebody else who's working outside of academia,
Hmm.
and being supported and not being alone with this path. And I think it's a good thing that move the things forward. There's always a leap of faith where you have
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
jump
Hmm.
into it, and it's not easy, but you have to give you a kickstart for that. Um, from what I saw is in our program we talked about all these career paths, possibilities uh, after a PhD, and I know that the student, it blows their mind. It's just like, oh, I can do that with a PhD.
Hmm.
What am I doing here? um, yeah, and for postdocs, I'm very happy when postdocs got a job. We recently had one of them who came in Canada. She just got a job like a few weeks ago, and I was very happy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure she would be a colleague in another organization. Um, and she did I don't remember 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of postdocs.
Oh wow.
That was the moment, and she moved to country from one another. So that was very great. And yes, the career path, and actually, I'm sure that at the end of the program, all the people who follow the program were just like, okay, finally, it's not that hard to get a job outside of academia.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a natural path. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's there's not only the professor path. I think all these paths are equal in terms of success.
Of course.
And 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 the professor path should not be only the natural path. All the paths should be natural. This is
Mm-hmm.
what you did a PhD because you wanted these specific skills that you learn by research, doing research and you learn by research. So, and
Yeah.
the goal of the second lab, we talked in the beginning about a number, which is 50% of students in Canada have a temporary job after five years, and the goal is to decrease this number of 5
Mm-hmm.
years to some months.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Of course.
so yeah.
Let's hope so. So yeah, so you didn't go into examples, but let me do that quickly. What I've seen and heard, and there are programs also helping
Mm-hmm.
PhDs get into these spaces, but there's government, there's policy, there's entrepreneurship. You can go into entrepreneurship without going into a postdoc, um,
Yeah.
and then there's people who actually change domains in a certain way, becoming I don't know, scientific communicators or
Yeah.
creative,
There.
scientific illustrators and artists, etc. So there's so much out there, but if you're thinking about jobs per se, um, there's a lot of entities out there, be they governmental, municipal, etc., who need people with the type of background and with the type of training, the type of skills that you bring from doing a PhD. And I think this is not going to decrease because these organizations are tackling ever more complex problems, and guess
Mhm.
what? That's what we do, is to tackle complex problems. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Tons of jobs. It's huge. I mean, we can do many things with a PhD
Mhm,
outside of
mhm.
postdocs.
Outside of postdocs, yes. All right, God, I think this was balanced. We showed where, in what context a postdoc makes sense, a postdoc or three
Mhm.
or four, but also in which context it does not. And I think this kind of does it for this week's dojo. Unless you had some last
Mhm.
word or some last subject you wanted to cover, I
No,
think we're
I
done.
think that's fine for me. We are done. So thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to discuss with you in this kind of
Yeah,
setup. Um,
same here. Same here.
yeah, and that was supposed to be 30 minutes, I guess. We are
And
almost at 1 hour,
at an
but
hour, yeah, as
but
always, it goes long.
that was a heavy topic. So
It is heavy. It is heavy, and it's difficult. It's just as difficult as talking about when and why to leave a PhD. It's tough
Mhm.
because people put their expectations, their dreams onto these kind of archetypes of professorship, being a scientist, etc., etc., being part of academia, and then they're faced with the statistics that you shared, be it of how many people can become professors, but also the numbers about employment and salary, if you want to stay in academia. And
Mhm.
so I think that that's why when you proposed this subject, I was like, okay, this is really important. We need to talk. We need to
Mhm.
talk about it, and I think we did. Again, if you are really considering becoming a professor, do pick up a PhD is not enough by so Feibelman is the author. It's a really really good, also balanced book about this issue. And yeah, I just remembered the episode that I mentioned to you about this stellar grad student that had a great career track and that ended up not being able to pierce that invisible wall into professorship.
Mhm.
It's Simon Moore. If you go to Beyond the Thesis on any platform and you look for Simon Moore, you can hear his story there. He was from Canada, but then he did after his PhD. That whole effort to become a professor was all in the States. And that's it. Thanks for
Good.
everyone who was here.
Yeah, thank
In
you, everyone.
particular, I'm thanking Jason De La Toya for having shared a comment and for having been here too. It's always a pleasure to have people watching live. And this is it for this week's dojo. And yeah, if this conversation elicited, any questions for you, feel free to send them either to leave them in the comments or to find me or Gad on LinkedIn and send us a DM, or you can write to David at papaphd.com. It'll be a pleasure to answer them. And yeah, that's it. If you're a YouTube person, do follow Beyond the Thesis on there. And it helps the channel, and also it helps me know that you exist and to thank you, etc. So that's it for now. Gad, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
And I'll be waiting for that link, and then I'll put it in the show notes, like I said.
Yeah, and see you at the next dojo.
See you at the next dojo.